Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Better Managers Briefing. I'm Matt Roberts. I'm the Director of Membership here at CMI. Today, we're going to focus on an incredibly important subject. It's that of volunteering and the importance of it in our society and within the CMI community. And I'm delighted to be joined today by two of our Chartered Fellows and some of our best volunteers, Reetu Kansal. Reetu is Senior Project Manager at the University of London. She chairs the University of London's Race Equality Group and has had a great track record of volunteering with CMI in a number of roles over the years. Part of the role that she plays right now is the D&I lead for our London Regional Board, and she's also part of our CMI Race Committee. Reetu, great to have you with us today. And Tom Doran is joining us as well. And like Reetu, Tom has got a long history of volunteering with the CMI, many years on the Northern Ireland Regional Board for the CMI. And amongst other things, Tom is involved with CMI as a Chartered Manager Assessor and as a CMI Mentor alongside his consultancy activity. So Tom, welcome along. Great to have you with us as well.
Thank you very much.
Now, guys, before we jump into some questions, I should just let the audience know that we've specifically chosen you to join us today because you were both shortlisted for our Volunteer of the Year award last year, and deservedly so. So we're going to talk a lot about volunteering and your reflections on your experiences and also your thoughts about the future of volunteering today. There'll be an opportunity for our audience to ask questions. So if you're watching us, then please type away into the live chat on the right-hand side of your screen any questions that you have for us, and we'll look to come on to answer as many of those as possible a little bit later in today's broadcast. So guys, great to have you with us. And I know that alongside your dedication as volunteers for CMI activities, you've both been involved in a variety of other volunteering roles. So I'd be really interested to hear your views on the importance of and the benefits of volunteering, please. And Reetu, perhaps we can start with you.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you for the really kind introduction. And it is great to be doing this with Tom. So in terms of the question, I will start with the benefits, actually. Volunteering is a great way to learn, discover, and explore about areas of interest outside of work or an extension of your work. So CMI has been great for me to discover more about leadership practices in sectors other than my own sector. I have found volunteering to be also a great way to influence and impact. So by being on a regional board, I've impacted the CMI strategy that impacts thousands of CMI members. I've been able to contribute to the race equality agenda, especially at a time when it gained global prominence, and that has been particularly rewarding. And volunteering is a great way to gain access to high quality personal development, growth, and also a network of highly committed, high functioning colleagues, who are like you, looking to contribute. And being on a similar wavelength, you are likely to make some long-term friends as well out of your volunteering experiences. Now, in terms of importance, volunteering enables to bring together an enthusiastic talent pool who are eager to make a difference. And it is an avenue to enhance your skills, to make better decisions, and to nurture, as CMI says, better led, better managed organizations. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you. Again, Matt, as really says, thank you for the introduction. Apart from CMI activities, I currently sit on 3 charities. And the reason I volunteer is simple. I've been supported throughout my management journey and career by people who volunteered to help and support me. Building up my own skills, knowledge and experience and attributes that are now sought out by charities and individuals. So it has gone a long way. I also help individuals who are seeking support, and that's through mentoring and coaching, and also being a critical friend, a listening ear, and by being professional and being a professional chartered manager. Also, because people took time out through my career to support and develop me, it makes me feel good, and I can pay that forward. And volunteer volunteering for me does a number of things. It gives and continues to give me the opportunity to meet a diverse range of people from across the world. It gives me the opportunity to learn from others through knowledge transfer, through learn, share, and passing it forward. And it opens up fantastic opportunities. It's also, over the last while, supported mental well-being and health, because you're simply talking things through with people. Also gives me a great buzz because I know I'm helping, I know I'm appreciated, and I know that I'm making a difference. And equally, people are making a difference to me. So I hope that answers that.
It certainly does. Thank you both for those thoughts. I think there's another perspective that I'd like to gain your opinions on, and that's, you're both, as well as fabulous volunteers, you're both successful leaders in your own right. And I'm really interested to understand the things that you believe leaders should bear in mind when they're managing or leading teams of volunteers as opposed to paid staff. And Tom, let's come to you first on this one, please.
Oh, wow, Matt, that could take all day. But I believe if you're going to lead by example, be a good example. It's important to have passion and to enjoy what you're doing. And never be ashamed to say you actually enjoy what you're doing, that you love your work, you enjoy your work. No point volunteering if you don't either give or get anything in return. So take time to understand the organisation or the individual and know what it is that both you and they want out of the relationship, and be committed. And that means being vigilant, ready for anything, prepared, cautious, alert, and on the ball at all times. Also understanding that you're not always right, so you need to be prepared to listen and learn. And engagement is not simply important, it's a key factor in any success. So get to know your team, understand them, enthuse them, motivate them, listen to what's being said, and especially listen to what's not being said. That's key. Have a plan, but don't be afraid to listen to options and divert from that plan. Share the success freely. They're not successful just because you're involved. They're successful because of the effort from everyone. And learn from the opportunities that will come your way.
Fantastic. Reetu, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everything Tom said, especially the point about engagement being really crucial. What I would add to that is it is really important to look after the people who volunteer for you. It is important to appreciate that volunteers are utilizing their own time and resources to contribute, maintain great channels of communication, and follow up on any discussions and keep them informed. And like Tom said, it is really important to listen to what's being said, but also really keeping an ear to the ground and being emphatic about what is not being said. Consult volunteers when needed, and always remember to thank them.
Fantastic advice, thank you. I think it's really important to emphasize actually the importance of volunteers within the way in which CMI membership is delivered, and you guys have both been integral to that. And for those of you that are watching today, you'll find a link in the chat, and if you're engaged with the CMI community already and would like to nominate people like Tom and Reetu for this year's award for Volunteer of the Year, you'll find the options available to you to do that going forward. I hope that you'll make those nominations with real enthusiasm. Reetu, Tom mentioned a phrase a moment ago about pay it forward, and I know that that's something that's very much part of your mantra around the way you live your life. So just in terms of doing this, you're doing exactly that in a number of different voluntary roles. Can you describe both what you give to the process of volunteering, but also what you get back from your voluntary roles, please?
Absolutely. So when I decide to do something, I give it my best, be it at work, be it for fun, or be it in a voluntary capacity. So that's been the case for my volunteering roles at CMI, or as an enterprise advisor on the Mayor of London's Learning Enterprise Advisor Network. So I ensure I understand what is needed of me For example, is it ideas? Is it delivering an event? On the Learning Enterprise Advisor Network, I help career heads at schools. So that could mean doing a SWOT analysis for them. But whatever it is that I'm doing, I aim to do it well, and I aim to do the best I can. And I absolutely find this really rewarding. I always feel I've learned something, or a thing or two, and I engage with great people in the process. And a lot of this learning can translate into meaningful contributions in my day job. Uh, I've been looking at apprenticeships, for example. So engaging with the school has given me a first-hand insight into what are year 9 students, for example, thinking. And I wouldn't necessarily have that if I weren't in that position. Similarly, being engaged with CMI race, it's been really enlightening in terms of the current discussions that I can then take to the race equality group at the University of London and vice versa. So there are synergies that can work really well together and are not necessarily separate. So it is really a win-win. It's a phrase I use quite often, but yeah, definitely applies here.
Great. Tom, anything to build on what Reetu's told us there?
Oh, I would agree totally with everything she said. I'm probably one of the longest serving charter manager assessors, and I'm also a CMI mentor. But my management career has been supported by CMI, especially through the people that I've met along that journey. And one gentleman I recall, Stanley Wallace, took time to encourage and enthuse me early on in my career. And in fact, it was Stanley that introduced me to CMI. And numerous people that I have assessed over the years have become friends and continue to support me and vice versa. And, the question, what do I give? Well, what I give is me. It's honest, ethical, it's unbiased support. It's based on the CMI code of practice. The transaction is simple because it comes from my own experience as a manager, coach, and mentor. It comes from years of experience in assessing charter managers and learning from them. And it's important to understand that I'm not always giving. In fact, a lot of the time I'm receiving. So while I'm supposed to assess, I'm actually getting more out of that transaction than the assessor. So, paying it forward is important. And like I say, if we reflect back on the people that supported my journey, without them, I wouldn't have got to the position where I am. And I think it's important to recognize that. And all the people that I've assessed over the years, I have continued to keep in touch with most of them through CMI, through LinkedIn, and watch their careers develop. But equally, whenever I've needed help and put a call out for help, that help is readily available. And that's what's so special, I think, about the CMI network, and especially the Charter Manager Network.
It's fabulous to hear. And as I've mentioned, we're once again looking to find the Volunteer of the Year for CMI for 2021 this time around, of course. Both of you were finalists last year. I'd like just to hear a little bit more. I mean, you've both touched on this to a certain degree, but a little bit more perhaps on how, volunteering has really helped to aid your own career progression, and maybe you've seen that with other people too that you've come across over the years. And Tom, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about that from your perspective, please.
Well, I think volunteering grounds you because it allows you to put your skills into practice and possibly unfamiliar areas of work. And people put their trust in you. So you need to be on top of your game. But that I mean, you need to have strong CPD, strong ethics. You need to refresh your skills regularly and never assume that they can't get better. That is your skills. So I don't know whether that answers it, Matt, or not, but I think it does grind you. It does grind you, and it's not always about the volunteer. I don't believe that volunteers go in looking for thanks or appreciation. Hopefully, if you do your job right, then that'll come automatically. But that's not why people go into it.
Yeah, indeed, that's a really good insight into the motivations. Reetu, what about yourself?
I absolutely agree with Tom's point about being able to apply what you've learned, because you may go on a training but not necessarily be able to apply that immediately in your workplace. And that is absolutely a brilliant opportunity to volunteer and to apply your skills and see, how you can actually use um, your skills and experience. I think volunteering also helps you stand out from the rest of the crowd, because your volunteering experiences are going to be really unique to you. I do believe in individuality and appreciating unique skills. And volunteering can be a great way to showcase your skills and can give you an avenue to express your personality, lead by example, and do things that you may not get to do in your day job. So, to give you a couple of examples, this has ranged for me. It ranged from leading a team quite early on in my career to producing a fashion show for a community project to steering life enhancing initiatives for young professionals through CMI Future Leaders, and actually beyond that. And so the different volunteering opportunities have sometimes proven to be stepping stones to something more exciting, something bigger, and something really to say to your employer or your manager, look, this is how I have evidenced this skill, and I think I would like to do more of that, please. So it's just wonderful. And like Tom said, the bonus is you get to be thanked for it and you get appreciation, but you don't necessarily go out looking for that. That's not why you get into volunteering at all.
Absolutely. So look, in a moment or two, we're going to take some questions from our audience today. But before we do, just one last question from me, if you don't mind. So, do you feel that in some way that the changes that we've all experienced over the last year with the pandemic, etc., actually creates conditions where more of us should get involved in volunteering? And are there changes in the way in which volunteers can make a difference as a result of the pandemic? I can't help but ask a pandemic-related question, I'm afraid, guys. So, Reetu, what do you feel in terms of that question?
So I think in that respect, overall, the pandemic proved to be quite positive for me. So a clear consequence of the pandemic was that some of us have been able to carve more time from what was previously used to commute to work. Also, virtual meetings allow people from various regions to engage. I've particularly enjoyed meeting my other CMI regional counterparts on their respective boards, engaged with diversity and inclusion. And I'm grateful to CMI for facilitating those rich virtual forums. On a deeper and an even more personal level, the pandemic has cut out the noise for me in a certain way and has helped me to prioritize and evaluate what is important to me. And I think that's been true for many people. Many of us may have learned a new skill or developed a new interest or hobby. So, for me, for example, this has been a chance to delve deeper into neuroscience and its application at work. This has an impact on the way I show up as a volunteer as well, equipped with more or different skills, and certainly changes the way in which I can make a difference, which could be bigger, better, and even more rewarding. So, it is a win-win, it is a virtuous cycle, and it is something that can absolutely be rewarding and life-changing in many ways.
Fabulous. Tom, any thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, I agree totally with what Reetu says. Expanding on that, I think volunteering has never been as important as it has been during the pandemic. And again, I agree that it's been positive for me in terms of I've been able to help more people. because of Zoom, because of Skype, because of Microsoft Teams, because of all these sort of, I was going to say new technologies, but certainly technologies that I wouldn't have used in the past. And simple things like, people suddenly find themselves having to work from home, who for years worked in an environment where they had colleagues around them all day, who they met in the morning, they chatted about the previous evening, what they're doing at the weekend. And suddenly they find themselves working from home. And a lot of them struggled with that new environment on how do they do their work, meet their targets or objectives? How do they satisfy the needs of their line manager? How does their line manager know what they're doing, not doing? And again, we talk about volunteering, but volunteering has many different guises. And one of them being the ability to put in a call to someone or receive a call from someone and talk them through your own experiences of that and others and to share. And I think that created a platform where people in that situation, just as an example, knew that they weren't on their own. And in fact, this may well be the new norm. So how do we deal with it and how do we learn to deal with it? So I think it was a positive. The only thing about the virtual coffees, I'm still putting on weight. So the fact that the virtual coffees at home, I still have my coffee and my tea, my biscuit and my bun, but I think maybe I need a virtual glass of water and try and lose some of that weight. Yeah, but it's been positive.
Great, thanks, Tom.
And if I may, Matt, another thought that occurred to me is, of course, volunteers who have trained to do vaccinations, for example, that's a brilliant thing to see as well. And I considered that, but there were logistical issues there. But I have friends who are volunteering, and it's really humbling to see that. And that's definitely a stretch goal, especially if you're not in the medical profession at all, and you go and train yourself to do that. And there's a fair bit of learning to do, what I gather from people I know who are doing that. So there you go. That's another thing the pandemic's shown us. And if I may show you, Tom, I do have my water and my coffee. Always keep a glass of water.
Well, I'm on my usual glass of water. But guys, thank you so much for those insights. We're going to turn our attention now to questions from our audience. And the first question comes from Yana. Hi, Yana. Thanks for the question. She's asking, I've recently heard of a new concept called micro-volunteering, where you volunteer roughly 30 minutes a week. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of this approach. Reetu, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it's interesting to hear that this is a new concept, but I don't think it's a new concept, but I think we're calling it something and packaging it as micro-volunteering. So in terms of advantages, I would say it definitely gives you the freedom to do something that is high impact and potentially low resource. The disadvantage, maybe if you actually see it as being tied down to the 30 minutes of that commitment, it could, your brain might start to reject the whole idea of it, going to my application of neuroscience now to volunteering. But what I would say is aim for 30 minutes. But if in a certain week you don't do 30 minutes, then maybe pledge to do an hour the following week, because your volunteering commitments can demand different levels of input and time investment from you. So, for example, if I have a CMI board meeting, then I may be engaged for 2 hours in a particular week, but then I may not be, it might be fairly lighter touch in the following weeks. So it really depends. But I would say you could use it as a benchmark, but don't get tied in by a certain metric.
Absolutely. Tom, micro volunteering, what's your view?
But Matt, it's a difficult one in terms of if you were 30 minutes doesn't seem a lot of time to give people the time that they need. I suppose a typical session for me would be minimum 1 hour. Now, that's not to say you couldn't try 30 minutes, but I just think I would lose something if it was felt that you were trying to rush it through. I think it takes time to get to know a person, for them to get to know you or an organization, and to be able to set clear targets and objectives and help them on their way. So it doesn't sound like it's something that I would use, but having never used it in the past, I would be prepared to try it. But I think we need to come with a caveat that if 30 minutes doesn't do it, we would have to extend it.
Absolutely. Great, thank you. So our next question is from Minal, and Minal asked, what advice would you give to early stage managers on how to start on their volunteering journey, such as how to maybe select the right organizational role to get involved with, what to expect in terms of time commitment? Tom, any thoughts from you on that?
My experience whenever I started off, and I suppose one thing, don't assume you're going to get the right role the first time. The chances are you may get a role that doesn't suit you or suit an organization in terms of volunteering. But, look at local charities, for example, are always looking for particular skills. So, go online and see who's in the market for volunteers and look and see what skills you have that may satisfy that organization. Bear in mind also that the learning you will get if you go into a charity for example as a volunteer, the opportunities for training and development that come with that are enormous, and funding for courses and training courses that you wouldn't necessarily get within your own day-to-day job. So look and see what's out there, look and see what skills that they're searching for, and again, don't be afraid to contact someone and say, here's the skills I have, would they be of any use to you? And if you're doing that, you're obviously looking at an organization that's maybe close to your heart.
Great, thanks, Tom. Reetu.
Yeah, I'll add 2 quick points to that. So the first one would be speak to other volunteers. So seek out volunteers in your network, see who is doing the sort of volunteering role that you might aspire to. I am assuming that you've heard of other volunteers, or you've seen other volunteers on your journey, Mina, and that inspires you to. So if you can seek them out. The second thing I would say is maybe carve out your own volunteering experience. So is there an organization that you really, really like and might be a charity, and as Tom said, say to them, these are my skill set, and is this something I could contribute to you? I'm very eager and keen. And also say how much time you've got available on average. Is it 30 minutes if you want to use the term micro volunteering? Is it 30 minutes you've got? Is it an hour a week? What is it that you're willing to commit? And also give them the option to suggest what they might need. They might actually say, no, we don't need any volunteers at the moment. There can be legal issues as well in enlisting volunteers to an organization. And still strive to maintain a relationship with that organization and see if you can stay in touch with them and look out for future opportunities.
Great, thank you. Guys, I hope you don't mind, but I'd love to sneak in just one last question before we finish today. And this question comes from Paulina. Paulina is a volunteer already, but she says that she often struggles to really feel the impact that she's having, as it's not always tangible. So do you have any tips on how volunteers can better understand their impact? Reetu, perhaps we'll come to you first on that one.
So I'm looking at the question and I'm thinking we could do a whole webinar on the impact of volunteering, but I will try to keep this really short. So I would say, as I mentioned earlier on, communication is really important, and I think a good leader, who's leading on a group of volunteers would ensure that volunteers feel informed about what their impact is, what actions have been taken, what tangible outcomes have come out of the ideas that volunteers have shared in a particular forum. And if you're not getting that from your group, seek that feedback out and mention it to your chair or to the person heading that volunteering initiative and say, I would really appreciate some feedback because it'll help me understand my impact and to understand where I could make an even greater contribution. Is there something you would like me to do more of, less of? And so it is actually initiating that conversation with them as well. And it might have elements of reverse mentoring. Now, I will just throw it out there. And so you might want to have a look at that to dip into some techniques on how you could get more feedback.
That's great. Tom, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, I'm glad, Reetu, you took that first, not me, but totally agree with what you're saying. The only addition I would put to it is I would do an annual 360 review on myself within a particular organization to see, if I'm not feeling that I'm making an impact, try and find out, well, what is the reason behind that? Have I been clear in what sort of my objectives are or were for a particular organization? So I think a 360 is good. But no, I'm in it to feel good, to help other people feel good. And if I'm not feeling good about it, I need to find out why that is, put some sort of action in place to remedy that.
That's great, Tom. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Your insights have been really inspiring for me, and I'm sure for many that are watching today. And I'd just like to extend my thanks not only to you, but to everybody involved in the CMI volunteer community. They're a massively important part of how our organisation works. And just again, a reminder to everybody watching that there is an opportunity to recognise the achievements of our volunteers. So if you've got somebody within the CMI volunteer community that you'd like to nominate for the 2021 Volunteer of the Year Award, there's a link in the chat today. Please do follow that. And I know that a number of people that are watching have asked, how do they get involved in volunteering with CMI? And again, if you follow the same link there, you'll find more details on how to get involved. And we'd love to have you getting more involved over the future for those of you that are interested in doing so. If you're not already a member of the CMI community, then there's a link again in the chat to find out more about how you can become engaged with us. But for today, many thanks. And Reetu, Tom, really appreciate your time today and as ever in all that you do for CMI.
Thank you.
Thank you.